Darkseed was released in 1992 on DOS by the newly formed company Cyberdreams. It was a combination of a horror science fiction point-and-click adventure game that was dominating the PC gaming scene at that time. It did set itself apart drastically though from the Sierras and LucasArts productions of that time, with its dark, adult-orientated story and tone involving protagonist Mark Dawson, a writer who's just bought a new house out in the country, but soon you find yourself experiencing headaches and dark visions after sleeping the first night. The nightmare of something alien implanting itself into your mind turns out to be more than a nightmare. You now have 3 days game time to destroy it before it's born into this world, killing you and destroying the world. No pressure. We are looking at the 1995 Japan exclusive Sega Saturn release of the game here, as well as the new 2025 English fan translation, making it now 100% playable to all Saturn English speaking audiences courtesy of Kitchen 34. Just like most games hitting DOS during this time, the game was re-released on CD-ROM, adding full voiceover work to the game plus minor extras. The Saturn Japanese version by default has the English voiceovers included. The company behind the game, Cyberdreams, were formed in 1990 by Pat Ketchum, a very successful entrepreneur that launched software powerhouse Datasoft in 1980 and gave us Commodore 64 fans classics such as Bruce Lee, The Goonies, and The Dallas Quest, to just name a few. Cyberdreams though was aimed at making games for adults, with each game being a collaboration with a famous author or artist. And to that end, with only 5 games released during their actual publishing years from 1992 to 1997, they basically 100% achieved that goal, with notable collaborations being with futurist artist Sid Mead on Cyber Race, science fiction horror author Harlan Ellison on I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and of course today's game Darkseed, a collaboration with artist h.r.giger of Alien and Species fame, and the game's later sequel. Mark Dawson, co-designer of the game, joined Cyberdreams for the making of their first game, as Mark details in this 2006 Gamasutra interview. The company was at the time just the president, Patrick Ketchum, and a programmer, John Krause, who were working out of Pat's house. After Pat interviewed me and read some of my writing, he hired me as a game designer, producer, and writer. There were only 3 of us at that point.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Pat Ketchum's idea was to make high-quality games with budgets of around $400,000 to $600,000, each using the talents and assets of established professionals in their genre. The president of Cyberdreams made a shrewd move. In order to differentiate the company from more established developers, he attached a high-profile artist to each title, not only to use their art, but to leverage their celebrity. He also paid Giger cash. Lots of cash. Pat wanted their first game to be recognized and stand out from the crowd, and managed to get Swiss artist h.r.giger on board for the game, which would use his biomechanical art and style to full effect to set it apart from any other point-and-click out there. Giger himself had lent his design skills to notable effect in the original Alien movie, creating the iconic creature itself, as well as books of his paintings such as the Necronomicon 1 and 2. Giger is truly a dark artist. I visited him in Zurich, and the stuff you see in the movie Alien is toned down from his original work. And when he gave us a tour of his place, he casually referred to one room as the place where his ex-lover had killed herself. The front cover of the game features actress Lee Tobler, who appears as the keeper in the game. She killed herself in a suicide in Giger's apartment in 1975. She appears later in a lot of his artwork.
Greetings, Michael. I've been sending you messages over the radio. The ancients have implanted an alien embryo into your brain. If born, this creature will destroy you and all of mankind.
The game is pretty traditional for the genre in terms of gameplay, with this Sega Saturn version also supporting the Saturn mouse. Move around the world, talk to everybody, collect pretty much anything that isn't stuck down, because you'll be using it at some point later in the game to solve a puzzle, whether in reality or in the parallel universe known as the Dark World, which you can travel to through a mirror in your house. There are a few rules though. The game only takes place over 3 days, and you need to return home to sleep at the end of each day, or there are consequences. For example, Fall asleep in the Dark World means instant death. You ultimately need to destroy the Ancients in the Dark World so the alien in your brain is not born.
You must find the Ancient's power source and destroy it.
The graphics style was quite unique at the time, using fully digitized graphics for the main character. Sierra had already started experimenting with this in Police Quest 3, but it wouldn't be until 1993 Police Quest Open Season when they fully implemented this style. Combining this with all the Giger art for the Dark World, which he insisted be scanned at the highest resolution available at that time, which does explain the downgrade in color for the entire game, which I think only adds to its creepy atmosphere. The Saturn version's colors are even more washed out over the DOS version, as it's rumored the game was actually based on the cancelled Sega CD version. But they didn't really use any of the system's graphics power here. Adding more color though would have definitely diluted the depressing atmosphere of the game. And ever wondered why the protagonist has the exact same name as its lead writer? This started out as a joke. I needed to get a concept document out on the game and was working on it until the last minute. I'd put my name in for the main character as a placeholder, and as an inside joke for the few of us at the company. I fully intended to come up with something else at some point, but when my boss saw it, he liked it and said we had to keep the name. It actually ended up going a lot further than that, with Mark himself actually digitized into the game. I was also digitized for the role of Mark Dawson. Yes, that's me walking around, climbing stairs, and oh yeah, having an alien embryo inserted into my brain. I think this decision was made based primarily on money. If I played the part, we would need to hire and pay a real actor. So in between meetings, I would jump in front of the camera and pretend to have an alien come busting out of my head. The sound design always seemed, to me at least, that it was attempting to drive you insane just like the game's plot. It has really grating DOS era music, which makes an appearance unfortunately in the Saturn version, accompanied by the wildly over-the-top sound effects. We do though get those CD-ROM voiceovers, even though for the most part they are extremely uneven, to put it mildly, which was par for the course obviously in 1992 I guess. Overall it's a flawed game no doubt, but still very much a one of a kind, which is a total product of its time, where it can be extremely unfair to the gamer and a bit too vague for any sort of casual experience. In retrospect, I think some of the elements put into the game to make it more challenging weren't fair to the player. For example, I think there were critical events that, if the player missed by being in another part of the world, would make the game impossible to win. The biggest problem was that it wouldn't be clear to the player that he could no longer win the game. Elements like that make Darkseed a tough game to complete, but still something that's worth experiencing. A sequel was released in 1995 and also got a full Japanese exclusive Sega Saturn version as well. Kitchen 34 is said to be looking into translating this into English as of making this video, as well for Western fans. And I'll leave a link in the video description so you can download the translation for the Saturn Darkseed if you want to play it this way. Mark Dawson only worked on one game, at least to completion, at Cyberdreams before leaving. Online rumors always persisted that the game had actually driven him insane, just like his in-game character. Mark finally cleared up this myth. Actually, I have no idea where this came from. In fact, I'd never heard of that urban legend until just now. But frankly, I like it, and so do my 6 personalities.